didn't bring my bag so I can pick up trash. Watching ads.
What?
How many episodes do you have open? Not many.
I kind of always go back so I can redo it, so
Yeah,
I can
re-listen.
get more episodes. And
Do you get more episodes if you go back?
no, but it gives me a chance to
You like
watch ads, and then on the weekend
remember,
I can
yeah. Are you warming up?
No,
What's cold on you?
my ball. Ice ball.
Oh, shift change. Come on. Oh, shift change. Car's coming.
Enthusiastic tour of the academy grounds. The campus truly was like a small city unto itself, complete with its own restaurants, specialty shops, libraries, training facilities, and even a marketplace where students could purchase spell components and magical supplies. After Max finally exhausted his knowledge of campus landmarks and answered what felt like his 100th question about cafeteria hours, he left Ray outside a large, imposing square building near the western edge of campus. This is the main dormitory building, gesturing at the structure. Check with the management office over there to get the keys for your assigned room. Just give them your name and they'll set you up. Max stretched his arms above his head, clearly tired from all the walking and talking. Anyway, if you need anything,
You should get us 2 foam chest mouths.
Just want to grab food.
What?
Come
You
find
should
me.
get us 2
I'm in
foam
room
chest
237
mouths.
on the second floor. Don't be a stranger, yeah?
So your
Thanks
phone
for
can
everything today,
hold it there and
Ray
then
said,
mine so I can
meaning
make
it
my
despite his
videos.
exhaustion. I appreciate you showing me around. No problem, Ness Taylor. What are classmates for? Max flashed his trademark friendly smile and headed inside. Finally, I'm starting to miss Jack and Gary. At least they understood comfortable silence. I feel like I've done a month's worth of talking in a single day. Ray was finally relieved, though his mouth hurt from all the talking. He stretched his jaw to release some tension before heading toward the smaller building Max had pointed out earlier. Before entering the dormitory, Ray's mind drifted back to his early conversation with Max, specifically the question about why Blake had called Eddie a freak. Max's reaction had been telling. His friendly demeanor had cracked, replaced by visible nervousness. He'd fidgeted, avoided eye contact, and given a non-answer. That's what happens when you mess with Blake and the upperclassmen. But that doesn't explain why everyone calls Eddie that name. What happened to make an entire school turn against one student? Ray pushed open the double doors to the dormitory management office. Inside, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and praying hair stood behind a polished
think this is the third time I've heard this part.
What?
This is the third time I've heard this part.
I don't think I've seen
No, we
It was
listened to
the
it
audio
one
transfer bureau.
before. This is the third
She
time.
began rifling through a specific pile of documents, pulling out
What's
a
her
folder
name?
near the top.
Beatrice.
Here we are. Naz Talon, correct? I've been expecting you. Her smile faltered slightly. I'm afraid we haven't finalized your permanent room assignment yet. The administration is still reviewing potential roommate matches based on compatibility profiles. So for now, we'll need to place you in temporary accommodation until...
Someone under the tree.
What?
Someone under the tree.
Under it?
Yeah, she's sitting down.
Yeah.
Yeah. See it?
Mhm.
It's getting out of the rain. It's getting warm.
Her friendly expression froze. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool temperature. Her hands, which had been casually sorting papers, suddenly gripped the edge of the desk tightly. That room is... She swallowed hard, choosing her words carefully. Perhaps it would be best if you just waited until I can arrange a room for you with someone else.
What?
Someone more
He
suitable.
says, no,
It
that
shouldn't
doesn't
take more
make
than a day
sense.
or
I
two.
just want, I need a room
Even
tonight.
the staff are afraid of Eddie, or afraid of associating with him. What could possibly warrant this level of fear? Ray's intrigue increased with every moment. I really don't care what room I'm in, Ray said firmly, meeting her eyes. I'm not particular about accommodations. Please, just assign me to that room. It's available. I need a place tonight, and there's no logical reason to make me wait.
There's no logical reason.
The woman opened her mouth to protest, closed it, then opened it again. Finally, Ray's persistence, or perhaps his unwavering insistence, broke through her resistance. With trembling hands, she pulled a key from a drawer and placed it on the desk. Room 311, third floor, she said quietly, not quite meeting Ray's eyes. If there are any problems, please come see me immediately. We can arrange a transfer with no questions asked. Thank you, Ray said simply, and left before she could issue any more warnings. The interior of the dormitory building was unlike anything at Avrion Academy. Instead of worn wooden floors that creaked with every step, the entire hallway was constructed from polished marble that gleamed under magical lighting. Not a speck of dirt or dust marred the pristine surfaces. Even the air smelled clean. After some walking, Ray finally located room 311 near the end of the third floor hallway. If I can understand why Eddie has become an outcast and complete the Queen's task quickly, then I can focus on finding the Divine Being's fragment and investigating Amy's death, Ray thought, his hand on the doorknob. Ray unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was pitch black. No lights, no candles, not even the faint glow of a mage light crystal. Rays used a light crystal. Soft magical illumination flooded the space, revealing a surprisingly spacious room, far larger than you'd expect for two students. Two comfortable-looking beds sat on opposite sides of the room, each with a desk, a wardrobe, and a personal storage chest. A large window between them offered a view of the academy grounds, currently showing the darkening evening sky. But what caught Ray's attention wasn't the room's amenities. It was the figure lying motionless on the far bed. Eddie was there, apparently sleeping, his silver hair spread across the pillow like liquid mercury. He was fully clothed, lying on top of the covers rather than beneath them, as if he'd simply collapsed from exhaustion, rather than properly going to bed. He disappeared during lunch, so did he come back here to sleep or hide? Ray moved quietly to his assigned bed and began unpacking his bag. Though unpacking was generous, since he kept most possessions in his endless void storage space. The bag contained only immediate necessities, some food, water, and a few changes of clothes to maintain his cover. The moment Ray's bag touched friendly gesture, but an aggressive grab meant to restrain or throw. Ray's combat instincts kicked in before conscious thought. His hand shot up, catching Eddie's wrist mid-grab. He twisted with precise force, using Eddie's own momentum against him, applying pressure to specific points that would cause pain without causing injury. Eddie dropped to one knee with a sharp intake of breath, his free hand releasing against the wall. Ray asked coldly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd been in countless fights. Eddie glared up at him with surprising ferocity. His eyes, a striking gray color Ray hadn't noticed in class, burned with anger and something else. Fear? Desperation? Both? The prince said nothing, just continued to stare with that intense expression. Ray released his wrist and took a step back. Instead of attacking again or demanding an explanation, Eddie simply returned to his bed without a word. He lay back down, turned to face the wall, and closed his eyes as if Ray had never entered the room at all. Is there something wrong with this kid? Ray thought, bewildered by the entire interaction. Ray sat on his own bed, watching Eddie's still form with growing confusion and concern. This is going to be more complicated. Hours later, when most students were asleep in their beds, and the dormitory had fallen silent except for occasional creaks and distant voices, a hooded figure moved through the academy grounds. Another man stood in an isolated corner of the academy premises, constantly looking over his shoulder. His hands trembled as he fidgeted with his robe, and sweat glistened on his forehead despite the cool night air. Professor, a deep, resonant voice said from directly behind him. The man spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for the wand at his belt before recognizing his contact. A human-shaped figure stood there, wrapped in a black cloak that seemed to drink in the moonlight rather than reflect it. When the professor looked at where the figure's face should be, he only saw shadows. You know, the more frequently you try to contact me inside the academy, the professor hissed, keeping his voice low, the more likely we are to be discovered. The headmaster has detection wards everywhere. If they activate... That is not a problem of mine, Professor. The infected interrupted, its voice like gravel scraped across stone. That is a problem of yours. Your safety is your concern. Our mission is my only concern. The man swallowed hard.
Do you
His
think
throat
this is a real
suddenly
person
dried.
doing the voice?
It is
you
time
know
to
what?
act.
I need
The
help you get
infected
that.
continued.
What?
We have
It's
received orders from
kind
the
of like a
highest
weed
levels.
whacker, but
We are
there's
to
a saw
sabotage
blade
the
on the
academy
bottom.
from within, weaken its
What does that
defenses,
do?
It gets
compromise
all
its
the...
wards,
We can
eliminate
get all the fucking weeds
all
or
this will,
sticker
in turn,
bushes,
weaken the
small
Allure Kingdom's
trees,
military power and, more importantly,
like all that
weaken
shit
the
right
Divine
there.
Being's influence in this region. I understand the mission, the professor said quickly.
Oh yeah, I
But
think
as
I
I've
know what
explained
you're talking
before,
about.
I still haven't
Cool.
been able to locate the Divine Being's location. If I could just find where it's hidden, we could destroy it immediately and... You said you would find
What's
it
your
soon.
shoe size?
The
What?
infected's
What's your
voice
shoe
rose
size?
with barely
10
controlled
and a half.
rage, the
Okay.
shadows around its face churning violently.
That was 2 months ago. How difficult can it be to locate one crystal in a place where you have authorized access?
Please, you have to understand. The man
What do you
pleaded,
think the voice
genuine
on
fear
this
creeping into
is
his
a real
voice now.
person or
The
AI
academy
voice?
keeps secrets even
I
from
think,
professors like
I think
me.
it's a few
The
different
headmaster
couple,
doesn't trust
2 or 3
anyone
different
completely,
people.
not even
And
long-serving
they
faculty.
have a director.
I'm trying to
As
gain
something
access
as
to the
the
restricted
Arthur gets
archives,
better, you
but
remember?
it's taking time
Like,
to avoid suspicion. Just give me a little more
Vampire
time.
system in
I'm
the
close,
beginning
I
was
promise.
like really bad.
The infected was silent for a long moment, and the
Those
professor
real
could almost
people, you
feel it,
think?
considering whether to kill him right there
think
for his
so.
failures. Finally, the true infected spoke.
Fine. You may have more time. But know this, Professor. The Shadow Plague will not be patient indefinitely. Soon we will act whether you have completed your task or not.
But
And
no,
when we
it's
do,
like a
those who
director,
have
you know,
failed
like
in their
the
duties
narrator,
will
and
face the consequences.
go like, oh, this is the
What's
The
tone.
threat hung in the air like a physical presence.
If you wish to
this?
survive what's coming, would you expect it continued? I suggest you work faster.
Oh, it's a dog toy with bug cookie with bug. Sign.
Just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure melted back into the shadows. One moment
That was
it
a
was there,
mushroom.
solid,
Yeah.
threatening.
Oh,
The
that's
next, it
crazy.
was simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. The professor stood alone in the darkness, his entire body
This.
shaking.
What's this?
The true infected's final words echoed in his mind.
Paper.
Soon we will act whether you are ready or not.
He looked up at the dormitory building in the distance, where hundreds of students slept peacefully, completely unaware of the danger growing within their supposed sanctuary. What have I gotten myself into? How did I let it go this far? The man thought with desperation. But now, it was too late to turn
Never
back.
too late.
The morning sun streamed through the window, pulling Ray from sleep. He sat up slowly, blinking in the unfamiliar room. Everything about Roland Academy screamed luxury, from the polished wooden furniture to the thick carpets beneath his feet. The bed itself was softer than anything he'd ever slept on. Ray had spent his entire human life in a
There's a
simple
sewer
village,
under this
then
road.
in the Avrion. This level of comfort felt strange,
Could be.
almost wrong. He wondered if he would ever get used to it. The morning rush had begun. Ray could hear footsteps in the hallway outside. Dozens of students heading to the canteen for breakfast. He glanced over at Eddie's bed and found his roommate still asleep. Might as well go alone. There's no point waking him. Ray dressed quickly and headed for the door. As he stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him, he looked up and immediately noticed something wrong. Everyone was staring at him. Students walking past slowed their pace. Others stopped completely, whispering to their companions. Eyes tracked his every movement. Is it because I'm new? Ray wondered at first. But his enhanced hearing picked up the whispered conversations, and he realized it was something else entirely. Hey, did he just come out of that room? A girl whispered to her friend. Does that mean he's sharing a room with the freak? Another student muttered. What terrible luck, someone else added with a cruel laugh. The situation was clearly worse than Ray had thought. For students to react this strongly just because he was sharing a room with someone? As Ray walked through the school corridors, he noticed that nearly all the students were already talking about it. The news had spread with incredible speed. He made his way down the main hallway, trying to ignore the stares and whispers. Then, suddenly, someone grabbed his arm and pulled him sideways. Hey! Ray started to protest, but relaxed when he saw it was Max. His new friend looked panicked as he dragged Ray into an empty storage room, closing the door behind them. Max, what are you... Hey, Ness! Max interrupted, his voice urgent. I heard that you're sharing rooms with Eddie. Is it true? Yeah, Ray replied calmly. What's so wrong about that? Max's face dropped, all color draining from his cheeks. He looked like he might be sick. This is bad, really bad. Max ran his hand through his hair anxiously. Maybe I should have explained this to you yesterday. You have to change your room. If the upperclassmen find out you're associated with Eddie, they'll target you as well. You'll become an outcast just like him. For such a petty reason like that? Ray's voice hardened. If they want to come attack me for a reason like that, then so be it. Max's face went even paler, taking on an almost ghostly appearance. He was trying his best to make Ray understand the danger, but Ray seemed completely unafraid. Max could only assume it was because he was new to the academy. He didn't know how scary these people could be. Look, let me explain, Max began, but suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went wide, staring at something behind Ray. Max cried out, his voice high-pitched with fear. Ray spun around. From behind a pile of boxes, a figure stepped forward into the light. It was Eddie. He had been in the storage room with them the whole time, listening to their entire conversation. What? Was he here the whole time? How did I not notice him? Ray's eyes narrowed. It frustrated Ray to realize how much he'd been relying on his dragon eyes. Those eyes had allowed him to sense presence, see through deception, and detect danger. Now that he no longer had them, it felt like he'd lost one of his senses. He was operating blind in ways he'd never experienced before. Eddie moved past the pile of boxes without looking at either of them.
Look at
His face remained
Total 1 mile. 24 minutes, 47
all the new
seconds.
growth.
Steps 2,636 steps.
Neither of them
You
was
know, we gotta
operating
do the
blind in
trees
ways
next.
he'd never experienced
All the
before.
trees,
Yeah,
the
we know,
willows
we
have
gotta-
new growth.
Start cutting down and
Eddie moved
like
past the pile
soon.
of boxes without looking at either of them. His face remained expressionless, revealing nothing of what
I
he
like
might
the
have heard
overgrown
or
forest
felt.
look.
He walked toward the door in complete silence. Hey, Eddie, Ray called out to him. The moment Ray spoke, Max immediately grabbed his hand, trying to stop him. Hey, what are you doing? Max hissed. That's the freak of Roland. I'm telling you, you will be in trouble if you get involved with him. Serious trouble. But Ray pulled his hand free, ignoring Max's warning. He knew how Eddie must feel. Being treated as an outcast, avoided by everyone. Ray had experienced isolation before, and he wouldn't add to Eddie's pain. Hey, Ray said. Eddie paused at the door but didn't turn around. He said flatly, and continued walking out of the room. For some reason, Eddie's dismissive attitude annoyed Ray. He wasn't used to people not listening to him these days.
Let's put it on the grass.
Mike simply brushed him off. Interesting, Ray thought, his irritation mixed with curiosity. What are you doing? Max said, clearly annoyed and frustrated. Remember when I told you not to bother the upperclassmen? And especially to look out for the student named Blake? I remember, Ray replied. Well, Blake has personally made Eddie his target. He's obsessed with tormenting him. He loves
said. Even if you are crazy. Ray smiled slightly. Good. The two of them left the storage room and started heading toward their classroom. As they walked through the corridors, Ray noticed that the students were staring at both of them now more than ever. It was as much attention as Ray had received yesterday when he first arrived, but the thoughts and words seemed entirely negative now. New kid's already made his choice, someone muttered. He's going to regret that, another student said. What is going to destroy him? A third voice added with dark amusement. Max kept his head down.
That newspaper.
After all, he is a Lancaster, son of Isabel Lancaster, the queen of the Other Kingdom. He could use his real name, and all of this would stop. Why doesn't he? What does he choose to do with this? There was only one way to find out. Ray into. Classes had started, and Professor Ruskin stood at the front of the lecture hall, his voice echoing off the stone walls as he spoke about the history of mages and the shadow plague. Ray sat beside Eddie, trying to pay attention, though his mind kept wandering. Max sat on Eddie's other side, fidgeting nervously with his quill. There are many theories about who the divine being was, Ruskin began, pacing slowly across the front of the room. But the most probable one is that she was a powerful mage, perhaps the most powerful who ever lived. Historical records tell us that she was originally born in the Empire and later started to explore the lands for herself, gathering knowledge and strength. Ruskin paused, letting his words sink in. But one day, she disappeared without a trace, and something else arrived in her place, the shadows. It was as if they knew that humanity had been significantly weakened without her protection. They began their assault on our world almost immediately. He looked around the classroom with intensity. Our goal as mages is to help fight back against the shadow, just as the divine being once did. This is why you are here. This is your purpose. Ruskin continued his lecture, his tone growing more serious. However, you must understand something crucial. Only mages who have broken through to the higher levels are able to truly fight those shadows. The creatures we face are frighteningly strong. If any of you were to face a true infected right now, I guarantee a wave of nervous murmurs rippled through the classroom. Ruskin raised his hand for silence, then began projecting images on the wall using magic. The students watched in horror as scenes of battle appeared before them. Everyone's face showed fear as the teacher went through images of what the true infected looked like and how they fought. For many students at Roland, this was the first time they were truly seeing the strength of the enemy they would one day face. The images shifted to show videos of knights and mages attacking a true infected. The creature stood tall and monstrous, surrounded by writhing shadows. Whenever a sword or spell struck it, the shadows simply blocked the attacks, or the creature's severed limbs grew back instantly.
It's not normal. I'm getting a little warm, but I'm
Unable to
not
help himself. At this point, he was already a veteran in fighting the shadow.
filming the
He's
ground.
faced true infected before. Killed them.
Filming the ground.
No.
I hate to say it,
Filming your leg.
Ruskin continued, his voice heavy.
Listening.
But it wasn't too long ago that we had no clue how to deal with these things. The kingdom kept this hidden from the public, but we felt like the true infected were truly unkillable. We had yet to kill a single one. Every battle seemed hopeless. Ray's attention sharpened. He knew where this was going. That was when our knights at Avrion uncovered important information. Professor Ruskin's voice rose with triumph. The true infected were using a powerful illusion. They constantly use their power to make you think you are hurting them when you are not.
Cute
Your
house.
sword might seem to cut through their flesh. Your spells might appear to strike their bodies, but it's all false.
It's
The
so
only way
nice
to
with
kill
the
a true
stone
infected
foundation.
is to destroy the heart.
Do you think that's real
My
stone?
discovery,
What?
the very person
Oh,
who
that's cool,
uncovered
the
that
stone
fact
wall.
is sitting in this classroom right now,
And
and none
picnic
of you know it.
bench.
Ray thought, with a mixture of pride and irony. Professor Ruskin continued talking about battle strategies and defensive formations, but Ray's mind had already moved on. He glanced sideways at Eddie, who sat perfectly still, staring at the desk in front of him. Eddie's notebook remained blank, not a single word written down. He's not taking notes. He's not even pretending to pay attention. What's going through his mind? Ray was confused. Finally, the lecture ended. Students began gathering their belongings and filing out of the classroom, chattering about lunch. Ray looked over at Eddie and made his decision. He needed to get to know this mysterious student better, not just for the divine being's task, but also to keep his promise to the queen. He had already told her that he would help Prince Nathaniel, and Ray kept his promises. What had started as a simple mission he agreed to was becoming something more personal. Ray wanted to understand Prince Nathaniel for his own reasons now. Hey, Eddie, Ray said, turning toward his roommate. You want to head for lunch with us two? Eddie remained silent, not even looking up. After a long moment, he stood and walked out of the classroom alone, leaving Ray and Max behind. Max sighed. I told you, Ness, he doesn't want anything to do with anyone. Come on, Ray said, standing up. Let's get some food. As they walked through the corridors toward the canteen, Ray overheard whispered conversations all around them. His enhanced hearing picked up every word. Hey, did you hear that someone is trying to become friends with the freak? A girl whispered to her companion. What? Does he have a death wish? Her friend replied, shocked. Yeah, I heard they're even sharing the same rooms now. And in class today, they were sitting next to each other. Who is it? Who would be that stupid? It's that new kid who arrived yesterday. Ness something. Oh, so is it because he doesn't know anything then? After all, he just arrived at the school, right? Nobody warned him? Well, if he does know about Eddie's reputation, then wouldn't it be like he's declaring war against the upperclassmen? Against Blake himself? Just then, as two students were having this conversation near the canteen entrance, a large figure approached behind them. Both students were pale when they realized who was standing there. Hey, you two, the student said, his voice deep and commanding. That thing you were talking about, this new kid befriending Eddie. I would like to hear more about it. Tell me everything you know. The student had two stripes on his shoulder, indicating that he was a middle-class student in the school, a rank that gave him authority and respect among the younger students. Yes, sir, one of the students stammered. His name is Ness Talon. He arrived yesterday and he's already made his choice, the other student interrupted. He's siding with Eddie Smith. The middle-class student's eyes narrowed. Interesting. Very interesting. Inside the canteen, Ray and Max found seats at a table near the window. As Max had expected, all the students weren't only avoiding Eddie anymore, they were now avoiding him and Ray too. People who had been friendly with Max just yesterday were now turning away when they saw him. Ray watched the social dynamics with detached curiosity. It was like watching a herd of animals. Everyone moved together, following the same instincts, afraid to step out of line. Max stabbed at his food with his fork, not really eating. Finally, he spoke up. Look, Ness, it seems like you're a good guy and you're just trying to help out. I can respect that. Max's voice was strained. But we're going to become enemies of the whole school at this rate, and all because of one person. With just the two of us, there's no way we can change anything. We're outnumbered, outranked, and outmatched. Max leaned forward, his expression pleading. And besides, it's not even like Eddie is appreciating what you're trying to do for him. Here you are, sticking your neck out for him, putting yourself in danger, and it's like he doesn't even acknowledge you exist. He won't talk to you, he won't sit with us, he walks away every time you try to reach out. Why are you doing this? Ray was deep in thought as Max spoke. Unlike Max, who worried about the other students' opinions, Ray didn't care about social politics. According to Lenny, Ray was strong enough to deal with nearly any of the students whenever he wanted. The only truly powerful opponents he needed to watch out for were the teachers who had already broken through to the higher levels of magic. Max was wrong about Eddie not caring. Ray had noticed something during class that Max had missed. While Professor Ruskin lectured, Eddie hadn't written a single word in his notebook. The entire lesson passed with Eddie's page remaining completely blank. The presence of Ray and Max sitting beside him was clearly affecting him, making him unable to focus. Prince Nathaniel cares. He's just not sure how to respond. He's been alone for so long that he doesn't know what to do when someone actually tries to be his friend.
Why do they call him Eddie?
Well, because he's in hiding.
Max
He doesn't
suddenly
want
placed his head down
Oh.
on
anyone
the
to
table
know
with a
he's
groan.
trying to do it himself,
Why
and
me?
somehow
No
it's
one
all
is
fucked
talking
up.
to me anymore. I'm becoming an outcast too, and it's only been one
Skunk.
day.
Smells
Hey,
skunks.
what about me? Ray said with a slight smile,
smells
trying
skunk.
to lighten the mood. You've still got me as a friend. This isn't a joke, Ness. Max lifted his
Can you
head,
smell that?
his expression miserable. Ray's smile faded. Although Ray really felt like this whole situation was somewhat absurd, he understood that it mattered to Max. But the problems Max worried about were nothing compared to what Ray dealt with in the outside world. Still, Ray tried to help. Well, if you're that worried about being outnumbered, then all we need is allies on our side, right? Just create a group of people who think differently. Find others who don't agree with how Eddie is being treated. Then we'll no longer have to worry about Blake and his
He's still
followers.
there.
What?
Yes, it's
Person
not
is
that
still
simple,
there.
Max began. But before he could finish his sentence, he felt a hand clamp down firmly on his shoulder. Both Max and Ray looked up. We have some business to discuss with you, Ray's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. Standing behind Max was a total of 6 students, each one displaying 2 stripes on their shoulders. All middle-class students. They formed a semicircle around the table, effectively blocking any easy escape route. The leader of the group, a tall student with muscles, stepped forward. His expression was neutral, but there was an edge of menace in his posture. Ness Talon and Max Hott, correct? The student said, his voice carrying a tone of authority. He didn't wait for confirmation. Why don't you two come with us? Someone wants to speak to you.
How did you come with us?
Max's body couldn't stop trembling as he felt the hand of the middle-class student gripping his shoulder. Ray, his eyes wide with fear. What do we do? Max mouthed silently, hoping his new friend would have some answer, some way out of this situation. Ray met his gaze calmly, then looked up at the students surrounding them. He kept his voice steady and unbothered. All right, fine. We will be happy to head off with you. As the two of them followed the group of middle-class students out of the canteen, Ray paid careful attention to their route. They were being taken to a place where lower-class students weren't normally allowed. The corridors grew wider, the decorations was stored safely in his endless void. But then a troubling thought occurred to him. If he did get into a fight here at the academy, he had to be extremely careful not to expose his true nature. The limitation frustrated him. According to the false information Lenny had submitted, claiming Ray was a fire mage, Ray's magical repertoire was extremely limited. Right now, he only had one fire skill he could safely demonstrate: Fireball. Finally, after walking through several corridors and up a flight of stairs, he arrived just outside one of the middle-class buildings. The group of second-year students led them to a large figure waiting in the courtyard. The man had his dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and his muscular frame made him stand out even from a distance. Like the others, he wore 2 stripes on his shoulder, marking him as a middle-class student. "We brought them over here just like you asked, Nano," one of the second-year students reported. "Thanks. You guys can go ahead and leave now," Nano replied, his voice deep and commanding. The other students nodded and departed, leaving Max and Ray alone with Nano. The courtyard suddenly felt much emptier and more isolated. Nano walked over to them slowly, his large body towering over theirs. Max instinctively took a half step back, clearly intimidated by the sheer size and height of the person before them. But Ray felt nothing close to fear. Sure, Nano was large compared to student standards, probably about 6'5", but Ray had faced much more intimidating opponents. Lenny alone was truly tall, so tall that Ray had suspected the older mage might contain giant blood running through his veins, or at least had learned some skill to magically enhance his height. Compared to Lenny, Nano's height didn't intimidate Ray one bit. Ray closed his eyes, and then Nano with deliberate annoyance in his voice. "What do you want?" Even after deciding his true identity at the academy, Ray wasn't going to let himself be pushed around by the students who thought their rank made them special. Nano raised an eyebrow, surprised by Ray's tone. "Shouldn't you know already? Shouldn't you have figured out why we brought you here?" "If I already knew, why would I bother asking?" Ray said, letting a slight smile play across his face. Nano's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I guess you really don't know. You are a new student after all."
Total 2 miles. 46 minutes, 55 seconds. Steps 5,145 steps.
Nano raised an eyebrow, surprised by Ray's tone. "Shouldn't you know already? Shouldn't you have figured out why we brought you here?" "If I already knew, why would I bother asking?" Ray said, letting a slight smile play across his face. Nano's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I guess you really don't know. You are a new student after all." He leaned down slightly, bringing his face closer to Ray's. "And the fact that you're talking to me, a middle-class student, so fearlessly proves you don't know your place yet. Let me educate you. The fact that you are talking to a dragon, maybe you don't know your place," Ray wanted to say, but he bit down hard, keeping them trapped inside. "I'm going to give you a warning," Nano said, straightening up to his full height. "Don't hang out with that freak man, or we will get involved. And trust me, new student, you don't want us involved." Ray tilted his head, pretending confusion. "I don't understand what you're talking about. There's a freak in Roland? I haven't seen anyone who would look like a freak to me." Max's eyes widened at Ray's boldness. He wanted to reach out, to stop his friend from messing with this dangerous upperclassman, but fear kept him frozen in place. Nano's jaw clenched with irritation. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Perhaps you sympathize with him because you're new and don't know better, or maybe you're doing it to make yourself feel good, treating him nicely like some kind of charity case." His voice dropped lower, more threatening. "But I'm telling you now, clearly and directly, if you don't listen to my warning, you are the one who will truly suffer in this academy. Your life here will become a living nightmare." Ray's hands curled into fists at his sides. "Are you threatening me?" Nano noticed the gesture and placed his face right over Ray's, close enough that Ray could feel his breath. His smile was cold and cruel. "In Interpret my words however you like, new kid. The two stood there for a long moment, neither backing down. The tension hung thick in the air between them. Max looked like he might pass out from stress. Finally, Nano stepped back with a satisfied smirk. Remember what I said? Stay away from Eddie Smith or face the consequences. He turned and walked away, disappearing back into the middle-class building. After the tense confrontation, Max practically dragged Ray to a nearby bench in one of the Academy's outdoor gardens. He collapsed onto the seat, his legs shaking from released adrenaline. "Now will you finally listen to me?" Max said, his voice strained and slightly hysterical. "They blatantly came out and said it. If you continue to get involved with Eddie, they're going to attack us. Not just threaten, actually attack. This isn't a game, Ness." Ray sat down beside him, appearing much calmer. He thought about the situation carefully, weighing his options. There were two ways he could deal with this problem. Option 1, beat the students to a pulp, show them overwhelming force, make an example of them, and establish himself as someone not to be messed with. It would be quick, efficient, satisfying. Option 2, solve it politically. Navigate the social structures, find allies, build a group strong enough to counter Blake's influence without resorting to violence. Ray found himself more inclined toward the second option, though it went against his instincts. Lenny had given him important advice before entering the academy, and that advice echoed in his mind now. According to Lenny, many nobles from throughout the Allure Kingdom sent their family members to Roland Academy. The school was filled with children of powerful families, future leaders, and skilled mages with influential connections. And Ray needed those connections. What Ray required now more than ever was to gather strong members into his army to fight against the Shadow Plague in a year's time. The vision the divine being had shown him proved that he would need allies, powerful allies, when the final confrontation came. I have to be careful who I ally with and who I go up against in this academy. If I have any hopes of recruiting them in the future, I can't make them my enemies now. "Hey, Max," Ray said, turning toward his friend. "You're from the Hart family, right?" Max nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "Yeah, why?" "Well, that means you have connections. You know people, or at least you can find information." Ray's eyes focused intently on Max. "I need you to gather intelligence for me. Find out which students would be able to ally with us, or are powerful enough to go against Blake's family. People who at least have the same level of backing that Blake has." "What do you mean, backing?" Max asked. "Think about it," Ray explained. "I doubt the only reason the Academy is turning a blind eye to Blake's bullying is because of his magical potential. There has to be more to it. I suspect it has something to do with his family background, his political connections. We need to know who else has that kind of power." Max's expression showed he was starting to understand. "You want to fight politics with politics?" "Exactly," Ray nodded. "Find me students whose families are influential enough that Blake wouldn't dare touch them. Those are the people we need to approach." "So what do we do first?" Max asked, looking slightly more hopeful now that they had some kind of plan. "It's time we investigate," Ray said firmly. "Investigate? Investigate what exactly?" "Well, let's start at the source. Let's go and ask Eddie what actually happened last year." Ray stood up from the bench, his decision made. "You never know. Maybe he'll tell us if we ask directly. Maybe he's just been waiting for someone to care enough to ask." Max looked doubtful, but didn't argue. "And if he won't talk to us?" Ray had already made up his mind about that possibility. Even though he had to be careful about who he fought with at the academy, there was one person he couldn't forgive: Blake. It was crystal clear that Blake was the one who had sent Nano to deliver that threatening message. According to Max, Nano was practically Blake's right-hand man, his enforcer. "If I can't get the information from Van about what happened, then I'll just have to go with Plan B and beat it out of Blake himself," Ray thought grimly. "Come on," Ray said aloud, gesturing for Max to follow. "Let's go find Eddie. We've got questions that need answers." sighed but stood up, following his stubborn friend.
You know, Ness, I'm starting to think you might actually be crazier than Eddie.
Ray just smiled.
Maybe that's exactly what this situation needs.
The principal's office smelled of old parchment and dried herbs, a scent that Eddie had grown familiar with over the past few months. He stood near the doorway, clutching a small bundle wrapped in cloth, gifts he'd carefully selected from the market that morning. Simple things, mostly. Some rare tea leaves, a few exotic fruits, and a book on ancient ruins he thought Principal Harvey might appreciate. Harvey sat behind his desk, the same as always. The old man wore his trademark tattered white robe, the fabric worn thin at the elbows and frayed at the hem. "Thank you, Eddie," Harvey said, his voice warm as he accepted the gifts. His white beard, long enough to touch his waist, swayed slightly as he moved. Behind his round glasses, his eyes crinkled with what looked like genuine appreciation, though Eddie noticed something else there
I
too.
came out of the
Concern, maybe,
after the
or
church.
pity. Eddie hated that look. "It's nothing, Principal Harvey,"
You
Eddie
come out of the
replied,
alley.
keeping his voice neutral.
Not from the
"Just
back
thought
where that
you might
person
enjoy
was
them."
sitting.
Harvey nodded slowly, then
He's
reached
just waiting
beneath
for
his
a
desk
ride.
and pulled out a cloth bag. "Here, take these with you. Fresh fruit from the Academy Gardens. The orchards produced quite a harvest this season." Eddie accepted the bag with a slight bow. "Thank you, sir." He turned to leave, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the office, but Harvey's voice stopped him cold. "Eddie, I must ask you one more time." The principal's tone had shifted, becoming more serious. "Are you certain everything is all right at the academy? With your studies? With the other students?" Eddie's jaw tightened. He kept his back to Harvey, not trusting his expression to remain neutral. "Yes, Principal. Everything is fine." "You know your mother and I are close friends," Harvey continued, his voice gentle but persistent. "It's thanks to her support and influence that Roland Academy could have been built in this city in the first place. She's worried about you, Eddie. She's asked me to keep an eye on you, and I..." "There's nothing wrong," Eddie interrupted, turning to face the old man. He forced himself to meet Harvey's gaze, to keep his voice steady. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing just fine." Harvey shook his head slowly, his expression sad. The gesture made him look even older, more worn. "Eddie, I'm the principal of this school. I receive daily reports about what happens within these walls. I may not know everything, but I know enough." Eddie felt his heart rate quicken, but he kept his face impassive. "I'm simply asking," Harvey said, leaning forward slightly. His voice dropped to something almost pleading. "If you don't seek help, if you don't tell me what's really happening, then the school can do nothing to protect you. Do you understand? My hands are tied unless you speak up." For a moment, Eddie considered it. Considered telling Harvey everything. About the upperclassmen, about the daily humiliation, about the way students scattered when they saw him coming, like he carried some infectious disease. He couldn't do. "I understand, Principal," Eddie said quietly. "But there's nothing to tell. May I go? I have classes to attend." Harvey studied him for a long moment, those ancient eyes seeing far too much. Finally, he sighed and waved his hand. "Go on then. But Eddie, my door is always open. Remember that." Eddie nodded once and left quickly, before the old man could see the cracks forming in his careful mask. Across campus, Ray was getting increasingly frustrated. He'd been wandering the corridors of Roland Academy for Every time he thought he was getting somewhere, he'd turn a corner and find himself somewhere completely different. But the real problem wasn't the architecture, it was the students. Every single time Ray approached someone to ask for directions, they would take one look at him and bolt. It was bizarre.
If you're looking for who I think you're looking for,
A voice said from behind him. Standing there was a girl about his age, maybe 17. She had long black hair that fell past her shoulders in straight glossy waves, and her eyes, piercing violet, unusual color, stared at him with an emotionless expression. Her face was beautiful but cold, like a porcelain doll. But it was those features, that combination of black hair and pale skin, that made Ray's blood run cold. No, it can't be. The memories hit him. The witch who defeated him as the great dragon said. She had similar features, black hair, pale skin, that same ethereal quality. Before he could think, before he could stop himself, Ray lunged forward and grabbed the girl by both wrists. "You witch!" he shouted, his voice echoing down the empty hallway. "What did you do to me?" The girl's emotionless mask shattered instantly, her eyes widening in shock and fear. "What are you? Let go!" Ray squeezed tighter, his anger overwhelming his reason. "Tell me, why? Why did you? You're hurting me!" she cried out, trying to pull away. Her voice was high and frightened, nothing like the cold, ancient tone of the divine being he'd encountered. "Stop! What's wrong with you?" That snapped Ray back to reality. He looked down at his hands gripping her wrists, saw the genuine terror in her eyes, and suddenly felt sick with himself. "What am I doing?" He released her immediately, stumbling back. The girl let her wrists, staring at him with a mixture of fear and anger. "I'm sorry," Ray said quickly, his voice rough. He looked at her more carefully now, really looked at her. She was young, definitely around 17, possibly younger. The divine being he'd encountered had been middle-aged, her face marked with age despite her power. And more importantly, he remembered now that the divine being was currently just a crystallized prison. There was no way this girl could be her. I'm so sorry," he repeated, feeling shame wash over him. "I thought you were someone else, someone who hurt me." She took a careful step backward, putting more distance between them. "Thank you for the information," Ray added awkwardly. "About the East Building. I'll go now." He turned and walked away quickly, feeling her eyes pouring into his back. Behind him, the girl stood frozen for a moment before whispering to herself. "What's wrong with him? I hope I never really stop cycling again." As Ray headed toward the East Side building, his mind was racing. "She looks so much like... but that's impossible." But then another memory surfaced. In the vision the divine being had shown him under the Kelberg Palace, he hadn't just seen the prince fighting alongside him. There had been a girl too, a female figure with long black hair. And Eddie was the key to getting them. Eddie had been here for a year already. He would know what happened, what changed, and why everyone at this academy acted so strangely. Ray reached the top floor and pushed through the door to the balcony. The cold air hit him immediately, clearing his head. He walked to the railing and looked out over the east side of the academy. Below, dozens of students moved between buildings, heading to their next classes. The grounds were beautiful. Well-maintained gardens, elegant architecture, paths lined with ancient trees.
Turn your light
It
on.
looked like the perfect place to study magic,
You
to
put your
learn
light
and
on.
grow. But Ray was beginning to realize that Roland Academy hid something darker beneath its pristine surface. He scanned the crowd, searching for Eddie's distinctive figure. It took a minute, but finally he spotted him, walking alone across the main courtyard, his head down, a bag clutched in his arms. Even from this distance, Eddie looked isolated, like an invisible wall surrounded him. Ray was about to call out when he hesitated.
If I shout his name in public, everyone will know I'm trying to talk to him. Those upperclassmen, the ones Nano warned me about, they'll find out I'm going against their order. Won't they just come after me next?
He remembered Nano's warning from yesterday.
Stay away from Eddie. The upperclassmen have marked him. Anyone who associates with him becomes a target too.
For a moment, Ray genuinely considered walking away. It would be easier, safer. But then, Ray looked at Eddie again, at the lonely figure walking with his head down, and something in his chest tightened.
Since when did I start doing what people told me to do?
Ray thought. A grin spread across his face. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted at the top of his lungs.
Hey, Eddie, up here. I need to talk to you.
His voice echoed across the courtyard. Dozens of heads turned, students stopping in their tracks to look up at the balcony where Ray stood. And Eddie, down in the courtyard, froze for just a moment. Then, to Ray's surprise, Eddie started running. Not toward him, away from him, breaking into a full sprint toward the far side of the academy.
Oh, so you think you can outrun me?
Ray laughed.
Think again.
Without hesitation, Ray climbed onto the balcony railing. Students watched in shock as they realized what he was about to do.
Is he crazy?
Someone shouted. Ray jumped. For a moment, he was weightless, falling 3 stories toward the ground. Wind whipped past his face. The ground rushed up to meet him. At the last possible second, Ray channeled his ki into his legs, feeling the energy flood through his muscles and bones. He hit the ground feet first, and instead of shattering his legs as any normal person would have, the ki absorbed and dispersed the impact. His feet sank into the earth, creating 2 perfect craters in the exact shape of his shoes. Without missing a beat, Ray pushed off and sprinted after Eddie, channeling ki through his legs again to accelerate to an impossible speed. He was a blur, covering ground faster than any spell could propel him.
I said wait.
Ray shouted, grinning despite himself.
We need to talk, Eddie.
Behind him, the courtyard had erupted into chaos.
Did you just see that?
He jumped from the 3rd floor. How is he alive? Look at the ground. There are craters where he landed.
What kind of magic is that?
That's not magic. Magic doesn't leave marks like that. Who is that new student?
A group of students rushed over to examine the craters Ray had left behind, their voices filled with shock and awe. But Ray didn't care about any of that. His eyes were locked on Eddie's retreating figure, and he was closing the distance fast.
Finally, I'm going to get some answers.
Ray thought. Whatever secrets Roland Academy was hiding, whatever had happened to Eddie, whatever fate the divine being thought she'd seen for him, Ray was done waiting. He was done being passive. It was time to take control of his own story.
Goes.
Ray's legs burned with ki energy as he weaved through the crowded pathways of Roland
Total
Academy.
3 miles.
His eyes locked on
1 hour 8 minutes 52 seconds.
students
Step
scattered.
7,651 steps.
Ray's legs burned with ki energy as he weaved through the crowded pathways of Roland Academy, his eyes locked on Eddie's retreating figure. Students scattered like leaves in a windstorm, pressing themselves against walls and diving into doorways to avoid the 2 men.
What the hell? Why is this guy so fast? I'm
I'm actually trying here, pushing my key enhancement, but the gap between us isn't closing at all, Ray thought, frustration mounting with every step. He was holding back, of course. The last thing Ray wanted was to go full speed and reveal the true extent of his abilities to the dozens, no, hundreds of students now watching this bizarre chase unfold. Whispers followed in his wake like a trailing shadow.
Kid,
Why is he chasing Eddie?
doesn't he know the rules?
Ray gritted his teeth. All right then, I'll just have to use a bit more. He channeled additional ki into his legs, feeling the familiar surge of power flow through his muscles. His speed increased instantly, and the distance between them began to shrink. Eddie's back drew closer, closer. Ray reached out his hand, fingers stretching toward Eddie's shoulder. Eddie glanced back, his eyes widening in panic when he saw how close Ray had gotten. Somehow, impossibly, Eddie increased his pace even more. How is he doing that? Is he using magic? Enhancement spells? Ray wondered,
Werewolf.
equal parts impressed and annoyed. But as Eddie ran, the fruit basket he'd been clutching, the one Principal Harvey had given him, jostled violently in his arms. An apple tumbled out, spinning through the air in a perfect arc. It hit Ray square in the face. The apple exploded on impact, sending juice and chunks of fruit flesh everywhere. Ray stumbled, momentarily blinded, spitting out pieces of apple. Eddie stopped dead in his tracks, turning around with a horrified expression. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Sorry? Ray wiped out his face, glaring at Eddie. Don't use that word unless you actually mean it. And why the hell are you running away from me in the first place? Eddie blinked, looking genuinely confused. Well, you started running after me, so naturally I started running away. What? Ray felt his eye twitch. That makes no sense. You were the one who started running first. I called out to you and you just took off. Eddie started to respond, but his words died in his throat. His eyes had drifted past Ray, scanning their surroundings, and the color drained from his face. Ray noticed the change immediately. The confusion in Eddie's expression had transformed into something else entirely. Fear. Cold, genuine fear. What's he looking at? Ray followed Eddie's gaze and realized they'd ended up near a different section of campus. The buildings here were larger, more ornate, with elaborate stonework and polished windows. A sign marked them as upperclassmen tier facilities. On a nearby bench, 3 students sat together, the upper-class students. Even from a distance, Ray could sense an air of arrogance about them. Hey, what the hell? Are you even listening to me? Ray shouted, trying to regain Eddie's attention. But Ray's raised voice proved to be a mistake. The 3 upperclassmen, who'd been casually chatting amongst themselves, suddenly looked up. Their conversation died instantly. Anyway, Ray said, lowering his voice and trying to salvage the situation, I just need to ask you a few things. About what happened last year. About why everyone... He took a step forward. Don't come. Eddie's shout was sharp, desperate. The fruit basket slipped from his hands, apples scattering across the ground. Ray froze. This wasn't the same avoidance Eddie had shown before. This was something else entirely. Raw, visceral terror in Eddie's eyes. Please, Eddie said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Just don't come close to me. Please, just walk away. Instead of backing off, Ray felt his stubbornness kick in. He'd never been good at following orders, especially when someone was clearly in trouble. Do you really think I'll listen just because you said so? Ray walked forward deliberately, closing the distance until he stood directly in front of Eddie. He kept his voice calm but firm. Now what are you going to do? From the corner of his eye, Ray could see the 3 upperclassmen rising from their bench. Blake was saying something to his companions, gesturing in their direction. The other students in the area were backing away, creating a wide circle of empty space around Ray and Eddie. Blake and his 2 friends were walking toward them now, taking their time, radiating confidence. The crowd of students whispered anxiously. Shouldn't someone get a teacher? Are you crazy?
Nobody interferes with Blake. That new kid is done for.
Ray stepped back from Eddie.
Trying to cause a fight. As I said, I just wanted to ask some questions. That's all. Who wanted to ask some questions? The voice had come from directly behind Eddie. Blake was suddenly there, standing behind Eddie as if he'd teleported. Ray hadn't even ceased moving. One moment, Blake was approaching from 10 feet away. The next, he was right there. Now, Blake said, his voice tripping with mockery, would want to talk with this freak. Before Eddie could react, Blake kicked the back of his legs. Eddie's knees buckled, and he went down hard onto the ground. Blake casually placed his boot on Eddie's back, pressing down just enough to keep him pinned without being overtly violent. I'm asking you, Blake said, looking at Ray. What's your business, little low-class boy? Something hot and dangerous ignited in Ray's chest. He'd seen plenty of bullies in his life, dealt with more than his share of them. But there was something particularly revolting about the casual cruelty Blake displayed, the way he treated Eddie like an insect to be stepped on. Ray moved without thinking. He crossed the distance in 2 quick steps and pushed Blake with a single hand. He didn't use much force, didn't want to reveal too much, but it was enough. Blake's eyes widened in surprise as he lost his balance and fell backward off Eddie, landing on his rear end. Who the hell does he think he is? Ray said, his voice cold with anger, placing his foot on people like they're furniture. He turned to Eddie, offering a hand to help him up. Come on, let's go somewhere quiet where we can actually talk. For a moment, there was absolute silence. The crowd of students seemed to hold their collective breath. Blake sat on the ground, looking more shocked than hurt, as if he couldn't quite process what had just happened. Then Ray felt a hand clamp down on top of his head, strong fingers digging into his scalp. It looks like someone already. Blake's voice was low and threatening. He recovered quickly, moving behind Ray with that same unsettling speed. You little low-class scum. Ray turned his head slowly, looking directly into Blake's eyes. Up close, he could see his eyes, probably 17 or 18. There was a genuine anger in those eyes now, mixed with something else. Disbelief, maybe. Hey, Ray said conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather. Do you mind moving your hand? You're hurting me a little. Blake's grip tightened. Do you know who you're talking to? Of course, Ray said. He reached up and grabbed Blake's wrist, pulling the hand off his head with deliberate ease. You're the upperclassman who's said to have huge potential at this school, right? Blake something or other? What's with this brat's strength? I can't move it at all. How's a first year this strong? Blake thought, trying and failing to pull his arm free. The crowd was growing larger now. Students poured out of buildings, drawn by the commotion. A solid ring of spectators surrounded them, keeping a safe distance but eager to watch the drama unfold. Hey, isn't that the new kid and the freak? Yeah, and that's Blake. I can't believe what that kid is doing. Are you kidding? This is the most exciting thing that happened all month. Blake wrenched his arm free with visible effort, his face flushing red. Hey, Crunk! He shouted to one of his companions, a heavy-set boy with a shaved head. Chuck it over here. Crunk reached into his pocket and threw something small and glowing through the air. Blake caught it one-handed, a crystal pulsing with inner light. Ray recognized it immediately. A beast core. Looks like I'll need to teach you a lesson, you little low-class brat, Blake said, holding up the crystal. The glow intensified, casting eerie shadows across his face. Here's what happens when low-class messes with upper-class. The beast core's light grew brighter, and Ray could feel the surge of power as magical energy flowed from the stone directly into Blake's body. The air around Blake began to shimmer with heat. He's using a raw beast core as a catalyst. That's at least an advanced tier 4, maybe even higher. Those things cost a fortune. How can a student afford
monitoring.
What?
With everyone
He does a
watching, while I use my
monitoring.
real fighting skills, everyone will find out what I'm capable of. But if I don't, maybe I should run, Ray muttered, taking a half step back.
It looks like he's able to use that beast core to amplify his mana reserves. If I fight back seriously, I might have to use more than just my basic fireball technique.
He was calculating his options, trying to figure out how to handle this without revealing too much, when suddenly Eddie moved. Eddie pushed Ray to the side, not roughly, but with enough force to make him stumble. Before Ray could protest, Eddie had positioned himself between Ray and Blake, his back to Ray, facing the upperclassmen. "This is why I told you not to get close to me," Eddie said quietly. His voice was steady despite the fear Ray had seen in his eyes earlier. "Those who do only get hurt. Now run." Eddie glanced back over his shoulder, meeting Ray's eyes. "Go. I'll handle this." Ray stared at Eddie's back, stunned. The crowd fell silent again, sensing the shift in the confrontation. "Oh, this is rich," Blake laughed, the beast core's glow casting his features in sharp relief.
The freak thinks he's going to protect someone? You can't even protect yourself, Eddie.
But Eddie didn't move. He stood his ground, fists clenched at his sides, placing himself between Ray and Blake like a human shield. And in that moment, watching Eddie stand there despite his obvious terror, Ray understood. This wasn't about bravery or fighting ability. This was about Eddie trying to save Ray from the same fate that had befallen him. The isolation, the targeting, the systematic destruction of his place in the Academy's social hierarchy. Eddie was trying to protect Ray by taking the fall himself. "Eddie," Ray said, stepping up beside him, "move aside." "No," Eddie said firmly, "this isn't your fight." "Actually," Ray replied, feeling a reckless grin spread across his face, "I think it became my fight the moment I decided to talk to you. Besides," he looked at Blake, at the glowing beast core, at the crowd of watching students, "I've never been good at running away." Blake's laughter died. His eyes narrowed dangerously. "Fine then. You both want to learn this lesson? I'll teach you both." The beast core blazed like a small sun in his palm, and the real confrontation was about to begin. Ray watched Eddie's entire body tremble like a leaf in a storm. His knees wobbled visibly, threatening to give out at any moment. Sweat beaded on Eddie's forehead despite the cool afternoon air. Everything about his posture screamed fear, yet here he was, standing between Ray and Blake anyway. It was a first for Ray. In all his years of fighting, training, and surviving, no one who was clearly weaker than him had ever stepped forward to shield him from danger. They barely knew each other. They'd never even had a proper conversation. Yet Eddie was willing to take this hit meant for Ray. "Why?" "Yeah, what a laugh!" Blake's voice cut through Ray's thoughts. The upperclassman's face twisted with cruel amusement. "And now the freak thinks he can do something. Actually do something to protect someone else." He started walking forward, the beast core still pulsing in his hand. "I guess it's been a long time since I reminded you about what you did a year ago, hasn't it, Eddie?" Ray saw Eddie's face go pale. Whatever Blake was referring to, it struck a deep nerve. "Time to remind you who you really are, freak." Blake moved with shocking speed, faster than any student should be able to move without enhancement magic. One moment, he was 3 feet away. The next, his hand had clamped around Eddie's head like a vice. "No!" Eddie managed to gasp before Blake slammed his head downward. "Time to show you hell again." Ray stepped forward instinctively, but then he saw it. The magical energy that Blake had been gathering began flowing from his body. But instead of releasing outward in an attack, the energy flowed directly into Eddie through Blake's hand. Eddie's eyes went wide, then rolled back. His body went rigid, every muscle locked in place. A choked sound escaped his throat. "Eddie!" Ray shouted, moving toward them. But Eddie didn't respond. He was still standing. Blake's hand kept him upright, but Eddie was gone. His eyes stared at nothing, seeing something that wasn't there.
What's happening?
His breathing became rapid and shallow. What is this? What kind of spell is this? Ray thought, circling around to see Eddie's face. Eddie's expression made Ray's blood run cold. Pure, absolute terror was written across every feature. His eyes were wide and glassy, tears beginning to stream down his cheeks. His lips moved soundlessly, forming words Ray couldn't hear. Eddie! Eddie, wake up! Ray grabbed Eddie's shoulder and shook him. Nothing. What the hell did you do to him? Inside Eddie's mind, darkness had swallowed everything. Then, slowly, light began to creep in. Not natural light. Something wrong. Something tainted. The world came into focus, and Eddie found himself standing in a familiar hallway. Roland Academy. But something was off about it. The colors were too saturated, the shadows too deep. No, not this. Not again. Please, not again. Eddie thought desperately. He heard footsteps behind him. Slow, deliberate. Eddie didn't want to turn around. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to close his eyes, to wake up. But his body wouldn't obey. But then he turned. A girl stood there, maybe 15 or 16 years old, wearing the Roland Academy uniform. She had blonde hair that fell past her shoulders. Her face was pretty. Would have been pretty, if not for the blood. Blood covered her uniform. Fresh blood, still wet and glistening. It soaked through the fabric, dripping onto the floor in steady drops. Her hands were stained red up to the wrists, and she was smiling. That smile, that horrible, knowing smile. Hello, Eddie, the girl said, her voice sweet and gentle, completely at odds with the gore covering her body. Did you miss me? You're not real, Eddie whispered. You're not real. This isn't real. The girl walked toward him, her footsteps leaving bloody prints on the floor. But I feel real, don't I? She reached out a blood-stained hand. I look real, and what happened to me was definitely real. Stop. What's wrong, Eddie? The girl tilted her head, that smile never wavering. Don't you want to remember that day? No, please. Eddie's voice cracked.
Someone he killed.
But you have to see me like this. The girl gestured to herself, to the blood. Outside, Ray watched Eddie's body convulse. Eddie's lips were moving faster now, forming words. No, no, please, stop. Did he use an illusion spell? Ray muttered, his fists clenching. He turned to Blake, who was watching Eddie suffering with satisfaction. Hey, what have you done to him? Blake's smirk widened. I thought the freak might have forgotten what happened last year, so I decided to remind him. He lifted his free hand slightly, where residual magic still glowed. I'm just showing him why his life is hell at this school, why it will always be hell. What happened last year? The question burst out of Ray before he could stop it. Oh, you don't know? Blake laughed. Of course you don't. No one tells the new students about the freak's little incident. But everyone knows. Everyone remembers what he did. Blake's eyes glittered with malice. As I said, I had to punish him because he didn't know his place. And now, his hand began to glow brighter. It's time for me to punish you so you know your place as well. Ray felt his ki surge in response to his rage. His vision tinged red at the edges. He's using some kind of memory spell, forcing Eddie to relive trauma, to relive whatever happened. Maybe there are some horrible memories you wouldn't like to be shown again? Blake's voice dripped with false sympathy. With this spell, I can help you remember every painful second, every moment you tried to forget. Blake took a step toward Ray, his glowing hand reaching out. That's it, Ray muttered, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. Ki began gathering in his fist, condensing into a point of devastating power.
He needs to be dealt with. Scum like him doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as everyone else. Ray stepped forward. One punch, that's all it would take. One key-enhanced punch to Blake's skull, and this would be over. He could feel the power building, ready to be released. What is happening here? A commanding voice cut through the tension like a blade. Ray's fist froze mid-motion. A young man strode into the circle of spectators, pushing students aside. He wore professor's robes marked with the Roland Academy crest. He was clean-shaven, with sharp, intelligent eyes, and looked barely old enough to have graduated from the academy itself, let alone teach at it. "Professor Flynn!" one of the students gasped. "Blake," Flynn said sharply, his eyes taking in the scene. "You know, fighting is strictly forbidden on school grounds. What do you think you're—" Then he spotted Eddie, still locked in Blake's grip, tears streaming down his face, body trembling uncontrollably. Flynn's expression hardened. "Release him. Now." Blake hesitated for a moment, then let go. Eddie collapsed to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. "You!" Flynn pointed at Ray. "Help me get him to the medical department, quickly." The crowd of students gathered outside Principal Harvey's office was larger than usual. Word had spread fast about the conference.
Total 4 miles. 1 hour 31 minutes 12 seconds. Steps 10,169 steps.
Blake hesitated for a moment, then let go. Eddie collapsed to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. "You!" Flynn pointed at Ray. "Help me get him to the medical department. The crowd of students gathered outside Principal Harvey's office was larger than usual. Word had spread fast about the confrontation, and everyone wanted to hear what would happen to the new student who dared to challenge Blake. Inside, Ray sat across from Principal Harvey, maintaining a neutral expression despite his simmering anger. "Now, Mr. Nestalen," Harvey said with a grandfatherly smile, his white beard shifting as he spoke. "There have been some rather interesting reports about you today. Multiple students claim you jumped from a third-floor balcony without injury. Is this true?" "No," Ray replied, his face perfectly straight. Harvey's bushy eyebrows rose slightly. "Really? Because these same students also reported seeing you chase after Eddie Smith at incredible speeds. Speeds that would be impossible for a normal student to achieve." "This is the first time I'm hearing of such things, Principal." Yes, I thought these reports must be exaggerated," Harvey chuckled, but his eyes were sharp behind his round glasses, studying Ray carefully. Outside the door, the eavesdropping students exchanged incredulous looks. "What the hell? How can he lie so easily?" "I saw everything with my own eyes. He definitely jumped. And those craters his feet left." "Shh, keep it down." Harvey picked up a sheet of paper from his desk, scanning it with exaggerated interest. "Of course, these things couldn't possibly be true. After all," he looked at Ray with that same smile, "how could someone with your weak, frail, sickly body be capable of such feats?" Ray barely suppressed a grimace. "Damn you, Lenny. Why did you have to give me such a ridiculous cover story?" Lenny had invented the perfect excuse for Ray's year-long absence from Roland Academy, a terrible illness that had left him bedridden and weakened. It provided cover for Ray's lack of knowledge about Academy social dynamics, but moments like this made Ray want to strangle his handler. "Please be careful, Mr. Ness," Harvey continued, his tone shifting to something more serious. "We wouldn't want your illness to return and hurt you again. Besides," he leaned forward slightly, "if a class student like yourself gets into serious trouble with other class students, it can greatly affect your future. Your entire future at this academy and beyond. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Ray understood perfectly. Harvey was warning him, or maybe threatening him, to stay away from the upperclassmen, to not make waves, to accept the hierarchy and his place in it. It left a sour taste in Ray's mouth. "I understand, Principal," Ray said aloud, though his tone suggested he understood far more than Harvey probably wanted. Ray left the principal's office with his mind churning. Students scattered as he walked past, their whispers following him like flies. I need to find Eddie. Blake said something about last year, about an incident, about Eddie being called a freak. I need to know what happened, Ray thought.
He transformed to a
Ness.
werewolf and killed
Ray
someone.
turned to see Max jogging toward him, his face flushed with concern and excitement. Is it true? Max gasped, out of breath. Did you really get into a fight with Blake? What did I tell you about avoiding him at all costs? I told you he was bad news. He grabbed Ray's shoulders, looking him up and down. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? Me? I'm fine. Ray's expression darkened. But Eddie... Max's face went pale. He's dead? What? No, not dead. Don't just go killing people off like that. But the look on your face. He's not dead, he's just... Ray struggled to find the words. Something happened. Blake used some kind of spell on him. Some kind of memory magic or illusion. And he collapsed. Max's concern immediately shifted. Oh, well, Eddie's used to that kind of thing from Blake. He'll probably... Used to it? Ray grabbed Max's arm. What do you mean he's used to it? How often does Blake do this to him? Max looked uncomfortable. Look, it's complicated. The whole situation with Eddie is... It's better if you just stay away from him, like I said. I'm not staying away from him, Ray said flatly. Now help me find him. I need to talk to him. Max sighed, but nodded. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you when this blows up in your face. The two of them spent the next hour searching the campus. Most students avoided
He's
them
in the
as
medical
usual.
bay.
News of Ray's confrontation with Blake had spread, making him even more of a pariah than Eddie. But eventually, after checking the dormitories, the library, and various empty classrooms, Max had an idea. The storage room, he said. The one where we first met. Eddie goes there sometimes when he wants to be alone. They found him there, sitting in the corner among old desks and dusty equipment. Eddie's eyes were red-rimmed, his face pale. He looked up as they entered, and for a moment, something like panic flashed across his features. What are you doing here? Eddie's voice was hoarse, defensive. Ray walked forward, ignoring Max's warning hand on his shoulder. He sat down on a crate across from Eddie, meeting his eyes directly. Eddie, Ray said quietly, I want to know something. Why does Blake call you a freak? What happened last year? Please, Eddie said again, his voice cracking slightly. Just leave me alone. Why are you trying so hard to get involved? It's none of your business. It doesn't concern you. Ray had started this search for Eddie with simple motives. The Queen had asked him to investigate why her son was being bullied, called a freak at Roland Academy. It was supposed to be a favor, payment for helping Ray secure admission to the school under false pretenses. A simple task. Find out what's happening. Report back. Done. Then the divine being had entered the equation, showing Ray that horrific vision of the future. In it, Eddie was there, fighting alongside Ray, entrusted with some great task that the witch goddess had foreseen. Ray's curiosity had been piqued then. But now, after everything Ray had witnessed today, the fear in the students' eyes, Blake's casual cruelty, Eddie standing in front of him despite his terror, Ray had forgotten about the Queen's request. He'd forgotten about the divine being's vision. This was personal now. He'd seen something of himself in Eddie. That isolation, that weight of being marked as different, as dangerous. Ray understood it in ways that Max never could, in ways that most people never would. Ray leaned forward on the crate, his elbows on his knees. Are you really okay with this? He asked quietly. With people calling you names? Monster, freak, weirdo? Do you understand that this might follow you for the rest of your life? That this could define you forever? Eddie met his gaze, and there was something broken in his eyes. Something that had accepted its own destruction. Yeah, Eddie said. I'm fine with it. Because... He swallowed hard. Because because I deserve to be called all those things. I deserve worse than this. Before Ray could respond, Max grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Look, see? He said he deserves this. Case closed. Max's voice was urgent, almost pleading. Now, let's go. This isn't our problem. We tried, right? We did our best. Time to move on. Ray let himself be pulled away, studying Max with mild disappointment. It was hard to believe this boy was related to Slivia. She was brave, strong, sharp-minded, always thinking 3 steps ahead and never backing down from a challenge. Max seemed like her opposite in every way, avoiding confrontation, looking for the easiest escape route, ready to give up at the first sign of real difficulty. But he is loyal. He's stuck with me through everything crazy I've done so far. That counts for something, Ray thought, looking at the bright side. Fine, Ray said aloud, making his voice hard. He shook off Max's grip and started walking toward the door. If you don't want to talk about it, Eddie, then I'll just go talk to Blake directly. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to explain what happened last year. Max's eyes went wide. Wait, what? Ray didn't look back. He strode out of the storage room with deliberate steps, Max scrambling after him. Behind them, Eddie stared at Ray's retreating back. Why? Why does he care so much? What does my situation matter to him? He doesn't even know me. He doesn't understand what I've done, Eddie thought, his fists clenching at his sides. But something in Eddie's chest twisted painfully. Part of him, a small, desperate part he'd tried to bury, wanted Ray to keep pushing, wanted someone to refuse to give up on him. But he shouldn't. For his own good, he should walk away, Eddie told himself. Max caught up to Ray in the hallway, keeping his voice low so other students wouldn't hear. Ness, you can't be serious. You're not really going to talk to Blake, right? That's suicide. He'll tear you apart. Of course not, Ray replied, his tone matter-of-fact. Even if I did go talk to him, do you think he'd just give me a straight answer? He'd probably just attack me again. Max exhaled with relief. Oh, thank God. So what are you actually going to do? Ray was silent for a moment, staring at the evening light filtering through the corridor windows.
Once again,
Truthfully, he didn't have an
Dragon's
answer.
Truth.
He didn't have a plan. He only knew he couldn't let this go. Couldn't watch Eddie suffer under Blake's cruelty without doing something.
Investigating.
But what? What could he do without revealing his true strength? Without getting expelled? Without starting a war he wasn't ready to fight? I don't know yet, Ray admitted quietly, but I'll figure something out. Meanwhile, in one of the meeting rooms of the upperclassmen building, Blake sat with his 2 closest associates. The room was decorated with expensive furniture, leather chairs, a polished oak table, and enchanted lights that cast a warm glow. It was a space reserved for the elite, the privileged, the powerful. Blake's confrontation with Ray had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. The way that the lower-class student had pushed him, grabbed his wrist, stood there without fear. It was unusual, troubling. Blake had immediately ordered his friends to gather information. Crunk, the heavy-set boy with the shaved head, held a piece of paper covered in neat handwriting. He cleared his throat and began reading aloud. His name is Ness Talon. He didn't attend his first year at Roland Academy. Official records say it was due to a severe illness. Medical documentation states he's had a weak body since childhood, prone to respiratory problems and physical frailty. Weak? Sick? Blake scoffed, touching his wrist where Ray had grabbed him. He could still feel the iron strength in that grip. If you ask me, that kid didn't look sick at all. Didn't move like someone with a weak body either. Crunk continued reading. He's currently roommates with Eddie in the second-year dormitories. They share several classes. Also, Max Hart has been seen associating with them frequently. Blake's eyes narrowed. The Hart family boy? Interesting. What else? This is the important part, Crunk said, looking up from the paper. Ness Talon was the first person in Roland Academy history to receive a perfect score on the admission examination. That's why the administration allowed him to skip the first year and enter directly as a second-year student despite his absence. The room fell silent. Blake's other companion whistled low. A perfect score? That's almost impossible. The exam covers everything from magical theory to practical application to... Now it's all starting to make sense, Blake interrupted, his voice cold. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the academy grounds. That brat was so arrogant, so disrespectful, just because he got a perfect score on a stupid test. He probably thinks he's special, thinks the rules don't apply to him. What are you planning to do about it? Crunk asked carefully. Blake turned back to them, his hand moving to the advanced beast crystal sitting on the table. He picked it up, feeling its weight, its power. The crystal pulsed with inner light, responding to his touch. What do you think? Blake's smile was cold and sharp. We need to teach these arrogant bottom feeders a lesson. Remind them never to go against us upperclassmen. Remind them of the natural order of things. Crunk shifted uncomfortably. Blake, if he really scored that high, maybe he's actually dangerous. Maybe we should... Should what? Be afraid of a sickly scum? Blake's voice rose. No! We establish dominance now, before this becomes a problem. Before other low-class students start getting ideas. He squeezed the beast crystal tighter, feeling its energy surge into his hand. Besides, Blake added with a cruel smile, I have the perfect plan to handle our new friend. Night had fallen over Roland Academy. Ray needed space to think, to clear his head after the chaos of the day. At Avrion, his previous school, there had been a public roof on the dormitory where students could go to think, to be alone, to stare at the stars. But here, Roland's dormitories had slanted roofs, all angles and tiles, technically off limits to students. Ray climbed up anyway. The night air was cool against his face as he settled onto the highest peak. Below him, the academy sprawled in orderly beauty. With nothing else to do and his progress at the academy stalling, Ray decided to contact Jack using the system interface. Recently, the system had allowed Ray to contact the Red Wings members without using the system messages. Now, he could also talk with them directly as if they were right before him. The mental connection was established with a single chime that only Ray could hear.
Kind of me.
How you doing? Jack's cheerful voice filled Ray's mind. Did you manage to make any new friends at the academy? Get into any interesting trouble?
No.
Despite himself, Ray smiled slightly.
I'm okay.
Jack
Are
never
you
changed.
okay?
That's not what's important right now. I'm struggling with the Queen's request. Prince Nathaniel won't help. He's actively pushing people away. Well, what's the actual problem? It's strange. It's like all the students here have been hypnotized or something. All of them targeting Eddie, calling him a freak and a monster, acting like he's some kind of contagious disease. Jack was quiet for a moment. Sounds a bit like you, boss. Back when you first joined Avrion, everyone was scared of you, avoided you, called you a monster. Ray winced. Jack was right, even if the comparison stung. Maybe, but I handled that by shutting people up with my fists. Can't really do that here without consequences. So, who's the main problem? There's this upperclassman, Blake Sunshield. He seems to be the ringleader. I was about to knock his teeth in earlier today, but I stopped myself at the last second. Another voice joined the mental conversation. Female, sharp, intelligent. Did you say Sunshield? Oh, that's Martha? Ray asked. I heard she'd arrived in Roland. After Monk had left Avrion City, Martha had become obsessed with doing something, anything, to track him down and bring him back. She'd pestered Slivia constantly, asking what they should do, proposing increasingly elaborate plans. Finally, Slivia had decided the best solution was to send Martha to team up with Jack and establish a guild presence in Roland. It got Martha out of her hair, while also advancing their larger strategic goals. Yes, I'm here, Martha confirmed. And if you're dealing with the Sunshield family, Ray, you need to be very, very careful. Ray's attention sharpened. Why? What do you know about them? The Sunshields are one of the most prominent noble families in the kingdom, Martha explained, her voice Ray's taking on a lecturing quality.
They've produced multiple top-tier magicians over the past century. Their family reputation is built on magical excellence and political connections. And most importantly,
She paused for emphasis.
the current head of the Sunshield family holds a high-ranking position within the Empire's military command structure. Which means
Martha continued.
they're essentially untouchable.
Ray was silent, processing this information. He didn't know much about the complex political affairs of the outside world. He'd always been focused on his own personal mission, his own goals, his own survival. But now he was tangled up in something much larger. Noble families, empire politics, secret identities. Ask Lenny to dig deeper into the Sunshield family background, Ray said finally. I need to know everything. Their connections, their weaknesses, their secrets. If the head of the family is a high-ranking Empire official, any major incident could escalate. Could start another war on top of the existing conflict with the Shadow Forces.
Understood, boss. I'll have Lenny on it immediately.
The mental connection closed, leaving Ray alone with his thoughts again. He stared out at the glowing barrier orbs, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Learning more about Blake's background hadn't helped at all. If anything, it made everything more complicated. Ray thought back to the incident earlier that day, to how close he'd come to hitting Blake with a full-power key strike. If he'd followed through with that punch, Blake would probably be dead or severely injured. And that would have brought down the wrath of the Sunshield family, potentially the Empire itself. Ray would have been expelled from the academy immediately. But Blake kept pushing, kept tormenting Eddie, kept using that horrible memory spell. How much longer could Ray hold himself back? How much cruelty could he witness before his restraint snapped completely? There has to be another way. Some way to help Eddie without destroying everything. Some way to stop Blake without starting a war. I thought. I just had to figure out what that way was.
Corner him by himself and then fucking
Professor
scare the
Flynn's
shit out of him.
footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as he hurried across campus, his robes billowing behind him. He burst through the heavy oak doors of the training room, the sound reverberating off the stone walls. Professor Springett? His voice rang out in the cavernous space, but the room was empty. Well, Professor Flynn's footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as he hurried across campus, his robes billowing behind him. He burst through the heavy oak doors of the training room, the sound reverberating off the stone walls. Professor Springett? His voice rang out in the cavernous space, but the room was empty. Well, almost empty. Professor Ruskin sat cross-legged on the floor in the center of the vast chamber, a paintbrush in hand, making careful strokes across the polished stone. He didn't even look up at Flynn's dramatic entrance. Flynn's
Total 5 miles. 1 hour 53 minutes 16 seconds. Steps 12,677 steps.
Cross-legged on the floor in the center of the vast chamber, a paintbrush in hand, making careful strokes across the polished stone. He didn't even look up at Flynn's dramatic entrance. Flynn's shoulders sagged. Sorry about that. Have you seen Professor Springett anywhere? Not today, no. Ruskin's voice was calm, measured, his attention never leaving his work. Flynn rubbed the back of his head, frowning. That's strange. I wonder where she went. He stepped closer, curiosity getting the better of him. The intricate patterns Ruskin was painting glowed faintly with magical energy. Oh, what's this? Is this the teleportation circle for the lower classes' practical training? Flynn crouched down, studying the complex symbols and interconnecting lines. It looks incredibly complicated. I could never make something like this. It requires precision, Ruskin replied, still focused on his work. One wrong stroke and the entire array could collapse during transport. Flynn straightened up and surveyed the room. Behind a thick glass in the center, a massive beast crystal pulsed with raw power. The energy radiating from it made the hair on his arms stand up. This was no ordinary crystal. That must be at least super tier, or maybe even higher. It has to be, Ruskin said, finally pausing to dip his brush in fresh paint. We're transporting over 100 students simultaneously to the training dimension. Anything less powerful, and we'd risk scattering them across different realms entirely. I heard this year's session will be the most advanced yet. Pre-prepared beasts in a controlled environment? Exactly. Ruskin resumed his painting, each stroke deliberate and sure. Since it's the first training session of the year, we have to ensure everything is perfect. We can't have any of our precious students hurt, now can we? Flynn nodded with a smile. As expected of the teleportation master, Ruskin. Well, if you see Professor Springett, please tell her I need to speak with her urgently. Of course, Ruskin murmured, already lost in his work again. Meanwhile, in the lower class building, the atmosphere was entirely different. The morning class had just ended, and the students were gathering their things, chatting about assignments and weekend plans. Ray was organizing his notes when suddenly, a thick stack of papers crashed onto his desk. What's all this? Ray looked up to find Max grinning down at him, though there was a nervous energy in his eyes. Well, you're planning to go against Blake, right? Max pulled out the chair next to Ray and sat down, lowering his voice. Then we need allies. Here's a list of everyone who either doesn't like Blake or has enough power to resist his influence. Ray flipped through the papers, impressed despite himself. Names, backgrounds, family connections. Max had been thorough. Wow, you compiled all this in just one day? That's impressive. He reminds me of Kyle, always knowing who to talk to, always having the latest information. I wonder if Kyle's doing okay back home. Ray's mind raced to Avrion and his source of all the latest gossip, Kyle. So everyone on this list has the power to stand against Blake? Ray asked, though something in Max's expression made him doubt it. Max's confident smile faltered slightly. Well, not exactly. I focused on nobles and high-scoring students, people with either influence or talent. Ray's enthusiasm deflated. After what Jack and Martha had told him about Blake's family, about the true extent of their power and connections, he knew they needed more than good grades and noble titles. They needed real strength, real conviction. Hey, what's with the long face? Max protested. Do you know how hard it was to find anyone willing to even be associated with opposing Blake? Most students won't even let me finish the question before walking away. He rifled through the stack and pulled out 2 specific sheets. Look, I'm not sure about the others, but these 2 will definitely be helpful. Max held up the first paper right in front of Ray's face.